All right, we're live.
Okay. Cool. All right, so I'm going to now share this to my Facebook. All right, so I just posted on my Facebook and we are live on YouTube. I just want to say thank you to everyone who is here joining us for this important conversation. I am Assemblywoman Chantel Jackson, representing the 79th District here in the South Bronx. I'm really excited to have this conversation around credit. As you all know, I've been talking about knowing your ABCs and your RBCs for a while now. We all understand what ABCs are, but the RBCs are real estate, business, credit, and stocks, because that is how we can create our own wealth and create generational wealth, which is extremely important for me and my community. We've been labeled as the poorest congressional district for way too long. And so I think it's important for us to start figuring out how we can create wealth for ourselves and our family. It seems like no one's coming to save us, and no one gave us this information in school. So here we are learning as we go. A lot of what I've learned is about trial and error and Google and YouTube. I am grateful. We have a little feedback. Okay, I'm grateful that we have people here who can help us walk through this process and talk intelligently about how to fix our credit, get credit, and what credit is, and why is it so important. I shared on my Facebook earlier today, like how having good credit really can affect your day to day. And it's something as simple as getting, like, I wanted to get a new bed. I haven't had a new bed. I bought my bed in 2006. And I know beds only supposed to last 10 years, but I've had mine for a while. And so I'm used to spending like $800 for a bed, right? So that's what I spent in 2006. So when I went to buy the bed and it was like, it's $4,000, I was like, oh my God, what are you guys doing to these beds? Like, what do they do? You can pack it up, take it with you on vacation. Like, how does this work? But had I not had good credit, I would have to have paid $4,000 up front, but they offered me a payment plan interest-free. So that means that they was gonna allow me to pay every single month some money towards the bed, interest-free. I didn't have to worry about paying money to use someone else's money, right? And so it was going to be about $65 a month for something that costs $4,000, right? Now, that would be so useful to me in my life because, of course, I have other bills, other things I want to take care of. So having to come out of pocket $4,000 as opposed to $65 a month is very much different. And that has a lot to do with credit. And so we're going to talk some more about that, but I just wanted to give you guys some anecdotes on how important credit can be. And also understand that if your credit is not good today, it can change within months. Like, it's not something that you're doomed with for the rest of your life. This is something that we can work on, we can change, and we can do better with. And you can start your children can start having good credit as well. And I'll make sure to talk about that and talk about how it affected myself and my daughter, who's 19 years old and has I think her credit score is like a 740 or something like that. And it's all because I put her on my line of credit. And of course I pay my cards on time. So she has a good standing credit just like I did. So we're going to get started with our Credit 101 Town Hall. And I'm going to turn it over.
Awesome. Thanks, Chantel. Hi, everyone. My name is Bryant. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Ed Feng, who's also on the line. And we're both really excited to be here today to talk to you about credit and what it means to be, personally, financially stable and secure. As Chantel was mentioning, credit is really, really important. It's really important to get your credit score, high enough so that it impacts your life in a positive way. But, to start things off, just for some background, what is credit and why is it important? So credit is defined in the dictionary as the ability of somebody to obtain goods or services before payment based on trust that payment will be made. So credit is all about trust, right? Ask these simple questions. Can a lender trust you that you'll pay them back if they lend you money? Can an employer trust you that you'll show up to work on time and do a good job? Can a landlord trust you that you'll pay your rent every month? That's what credit is about. It's about trust. Can somebody rely on you to do something in the future? And in this case, we're talking about pay back your loans, pay back the money that you borrow. So with credit, there are a lot of different ways to look at credit and track your credit and monitor your credit. So I'm just going to go over real quick a few key terminologies when you're examining credit. So first off, understanding what is a credit report. You might have heard about it before, but a credit report shows all sorts of information about you, about your personal financial profile. And that includes your history of paying off your bills, current debt you might have, credit cards, mortgages, auto loans, how much credit you have and how much credit you're using. So if you have a loan, how much of the loan did you borrow on already? Any collections? If you borrowed and you haven't paid back, are there any outstanding collections on the debt that you owe? As well as any credit inquiries. That's like if you decide to go to the bank and ask to borrow a loan, then the bank is going to check on your credit history and your credit report to see if they want to give you a loan. And so every time you ask for a loan, that's another credit inquiry that goes on your credit report. And one thing that you should know is that you can request a free credit report so you can see what people are seeing when they look at your profile from any of the 3 credit rating agencies for free at www.annualcreditreport.com. So that link we have on screen. And these 3 credit rating agencies are required to give you a free report at least once a year. Okay.
I'll just add that it's nowadays most bank accounts, like if you have a bank account with Chase, Citi, whatever it is, on their account summary page, you can usually find a link that says, check your credit score, check your credit journey, and they will link to one of these three providers, and they will tell you what your score is and how it's changing. So if you have a bank account, definitely log in and check that out. It's pretty easy to do on the app or on the website.
Definitely. I actually did that with TD Bank. So yes.
Yeah, it's a great feature. So that makes it easy. It gives you a lot of free access to your score at any time. Oh, sorry, got a little feedback there.
Can we?
Yeah, I'm working on it now.
Great,
I think it's better now. All right.
Yep, quick to the next slide. So generally your score goes between 300 to 850. And the value of having a higher score, as Chantel kind of alluded to earlier, is 2 reasons. One is you get a better interest rate for when you apply for different things, like a loan for a car, a mortgage for your house. And you're also more likely to get approved for things. So there is a bit of a benchmark where if you fall below a certain credit score, you may not be eligible to even have a credit card or have anyone lend to you. So that's pretty important. And you can see the range that we have here. This can make a pretty big difference in the interest rate that you end up getting from a lender. So as an example, the difference between like a 600 point credit score versus a 700 point credit score could be as much as 0.5% interest difference, which may not sound like a lot, But when you talk about like a 30-year loan on a mortgage, that adds up to tens of thousands of dollars in difference in how much you have to pay the bank. So that 0.5% difference over time is a lot of money.
And Ed, I know we mentioned like a car and a house, but it's things as simple as a cell phone. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Should we go to the next slide?
Sure. I think we got a question that came up.
Yeah,
Ava, did you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. I heard when he said that you can get your credit score from your bank, and oftentimes I do look at my credit score for my bank. Is that only one score? And how would I know which one is it coming from? Because I know that I heard that because I don't know too much. That's why I'm here. But I heard there's a difference between the FICO, like different scores. So I would like to know, is my credit score that I'm getting from my bank, is that my actual score, or is that the one that counts?
Yeah. Great question, Ava. So there are a couple of different versions of your score, but the one that the bank is showing you, online and giving you, it's like your main score or your average score. So it's going to give you ballpark, what your score is for your everyday needs. So like if you're applying for a credit card, that's usually the score that you're going to get. Oh, sorry, getting some feedback.
What about a house?
Great question. So it's going to be close to your house score, but there are some other scores that the agencies have that are specifically for different purposes. So they might have like a FICO score for homes. They have a FICO score for auto loans as well. And it's going to be it might be slightly different, but it's going to be close. It's going to give you an indication of where it's going to be. But that's where there are other tools out there that will show you, if you wanted to, if you were looking to buy a house, let's say, or buy a car, maybe what you want to do is do like a free trial with one of the agencies. So for example, you go to Experian's website or something, or Equifax's website, and you say, hey, give me a free trial. They often run these, like 1 week free trial, right? With these guys before you have to pay any money. And then you do a free trial, and then it shows you, okay, these are the scores that they got for you. Your main score, your auto loan score, your mortgage score, and that's going to give you more information. So you know what you need to know. Does that help? Awesome.
Yes,
Great.
It does. Thank you.
Bottom line is you have different scores depending on which agency, and different scores depending on what type of loan you're trying to get.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me see. Was there another question in the chat? Okay. Are you going to discuss the difference between credit score, credit report, FICO? Yep. That's what we're going through right now. Yep. That's right. Okay, Ed, do you want to continue? I'll jump to page 8 here.
I think one. Yep, there we go. So probably one of the most important questions here is, what are the factors that impact your credit score, and how can you improve it? So we ordered this in the things that impact your credit from most to least. So payment history is the most important thing, as you might imagine. So how frequently are you paying on time when you have a loan? So if you have like an outstanding credit card loan and you're not paying it every month, that factors into your credit score. That gets reported back and will impact your score. So on-time payment is the most important factor in your credit score. The second is how much debt you actually have right now. So if you have a lot of debt already, companies are less likely to lend you even more money because they know you already have a lot of money outstanding. So that's the number 2 biggest factor in your credit score is how much debt you've already borrowed. The third one is actually one that Chantel mentioned earlier. It's a pretty important one as well. 15% of the score is credit history. And this is one I actually, I wish I had started earlier myself. I didn't get my first credit card until I was 21, 22 years old. So my credit history is not as long as it could be. I think what Chantel mentioned is actually very powerful because if you have a child, you can create a joint bank account, joint credit card account, and that starts that person's history. Would have been years earlier for me if I had started in high school, for instance. So this is a pretty important one as well, is how long your credit history is.
So Ed, let me just expand a little bit right there. So what happens is my daughter was maybe 16 or 17, and I put her on a line of credit. And for her, I actually gave her the card because she's responsible. But for other parents, if you don't want your child to have the card, you never have to give them the card. And she received the credit history that I've had for maybe 10 years. So even though she just got her credit card at 16 or 17, she has my credit history, which was in good standing for 10 years, attached to her name. So when she turned 19, she looked at her credit score and she was like, oh, I have this, this good credit. And it's because of the line of credit I put her on just a year or two ago. And so just keep that in mind. Like, you don't have to give them the credit card. You can hold it for themselves, but they at least have it. And you must be paying on time, keeping your debt low. That's important, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely. Because if you're not paying it off, you're passing on that bad credit to your kids. So that's a responsibility. It's a great way to get your kids started, but if you aren't responsible in taking care of your kids' credit too, then you're not doing them a favor. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah. It's great if you have good credit, you can pass on good credit history. But if you start early and you're not paying it off, then you're starting off the problems earlier.
Emmanuel, can you please mute everyone?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
So the fourth thing on here is new credit applications. So this is every time you open up or you're requesting for additional credit. This is kind of a short-term impact to your credit score. So you shouldn't really be opening up like 10 different credit cards every month. Things like opening up credit cards will hurt your credit score in the short term because then it seems like you're trying to, you need to borrow a lot more money. So it's a bit of a red flag for banks. So it's a lower part of a score, but it does impact your score. And then types of credit is also, it's also one of the lower ones, but having a diverse slate of different types of credit shows that you are more responsible in managing your credit. So if you have student loans, if you have a history of mortgage payments and credit cards, this would help your credit score as well. But it's fairly low on the ranking here. Anything on this?
Yeah, I think the most important things here, as Ed mentioned, it's you got to pay off your credit cards. You got to pay off your loans on time. That's going to do the best for your credit.
Right.
And if you have a loan outstanding, let's say you have a credit card, you're not maxing out that credit card all the time, right? Like if you have a credit card and you're using maybe 10% of the credit card loan balance, that's better than maxing it out all the time, because they're going to see, okay, if you're maxing out all the time, the credit card agencies are going to say, oh, this person really needs that credit desperately. We got to keep an eye on this person's score and their history. So try not to use too much credit as well, and that's going to help.
And I just want to get an idea of where people are with their credit. So if you already have and this might be sensitive, so I'm aware of that, but I just want to know our audience who we're talking to. So if you are in a place where you have good credit and you just want to improve it, or you're in a place where you have decent credit or not so good credit, or you don't have credit at all, we just want to know where we are so we can know how to have this appropriate conversation. Because the truth is, people who have, and you can drop that in the chat, but people who have bad credit, what they consider bad credit, if you have a lot of things that you haven't been paying on time, once you have that conversation with the lender and make a payment plan and actually start paying on time, then that will start changing your credit score. But you can't just keep running away from it. And I think that's what happens, is that when we figure out that we haven't been making our payments, we kind of run from our lender and don't answer their phone calls, don't respond to their emails or mails, and the issue does not go away. It stays there. So what you want to do is always reach out to your lenders and create a payment plan of some sort, and so that you can get out of that debt. And that is a better place to be in than for us to just act like it never existed. Dion said they have to come find him. But and the thing is that it's cool when you don't need credit, but the second you need credit, you're like, darn, like I can't do anything because I have that outstanding T-Mobile bill from 2004, you know? And so it's important that we can talk about like how to get things off your credit report and all of that. But the truth is you want to always make payments onto all of your lenders.
I see we got a hand up from Pride. You got a question, Pride?
Good evening, everyone. So I have a question. It's more so a personal question, but you know, I don't mind sharing. So I'm a college student, and I have my college debt, which is like $15,000, and then I have my car, which is like I have like $1,200 left on it. I had a Target credit card, but I paid that off and I closed that account. And I did that my sophomore year in college, and I wanted to pay that off and close it. Would it be, I want to get a new credit card, but I want to pay off my car first before I open up a new credit card. Will that be wise, or am I able to do it because I only have 2 open accounts?
So you can definitely open up an additional credit card, assuming your credit score is in a good place.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I've
just
been
because
paying
you
my card
open up a credit card doesn't mean you have to use the credit card. And I think that's a key difference here. So when you closed your card, that's actually not always a good thing to do, because you want to have a longer credit history. So you kind of want to keep your oldest credit card open, even if you're not using it. You know, keep it in a drawer somewhere if you don't, you don't need to always use it. But it's good to have that long credit history. And it actually helps you to have a credit card open. So if you are eligible to have a credit card, it actually helps that second line there, the current debts, because that would show that you have more credit available to you. But you don't necessarily need to use it. I think that's the key here is don't really spend the money unless you can pay it off, which is the first one here, payments history.
Yeah, you want to keep your utilization low. And not at all. Like I have a credit card from MCU I never even touched. So I have $5,000 on there and I'm not even going to touch it. I don't even have the card. The card they never sent me the card, which is fine.
Okay, thank you.
You don't want to close out like old cards. Like I have a card I got in 2006, and that's probably one of my longest running cards. And so that's a card that I'm going to always keep regardless if I use it or not, because your credit history is important, right? So if I close that card down, that will cut down on my credit history and cut down on the amount of credit that I actually have. So you want to keep those older cards on older accounts, rather, not cards, but accounts longer.
Yeah. Just make sure they're all paid off, and then you can kind of forget about them.
Yep.
No, can I interject real quick? Since this is a conversation on credit, but I would say, hi, this is Emmanuel. Sorry about that. Now, when we have these accounts and you don't utilize a credit card, some of the lenders will close the account. What would you say to that? To those credit cards who are not being utilized? Mm-hmm. I personally do a strategy where I keep a little small subscription on it and auto pay it by itself so that it keeps being used, but also is being utilized and paid off. So I don't have to think about it. So that it doesn't seem like I'm just not using the credit card at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a great point. Sometimes cards will, some banks will close your credit cards if you don't use it for a year or 2 years. So yeah, I think the strategy that you use makes a ton of sense. Like put a recurring payment on there and have it paid off automatically, so you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
So I saw a question from Dion. What is a free FICO score website? So you got a couple of options there, Dion. So I'm going to jump back for a second when we're talking about the different agencies. So these are your 3 credit rating agencies: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And what you can sometimes do, probably once a year or so with each one of these, is they're often running free trials. They're often running free trials where they say, if you sign up with us, 7-day free trial, you'll get your free credit score, and you can see what other features we have to help you monitor and manage your credit. So you can sign up. You can sign up, let's say, with Experian here for like a 7-day free trial, and then for that 7 days, you've got all your credit score information right there in front of you for you to take a look at. And just make sure, by day 7, if you don't want that subscription, cancel it, right? So then it's free, right? But that's going to tell you your credit score right then and there. I see from Yadira, Credit Karma. Credit Karma is another good one. They give you credit score information as well. They're an app, a free app that you can download. They're great. I use them as well. So you got a few options.
I have a question.
Sure.
Hi, my name's Kelvin. I have a question regarding when is it a good time to make a payment? Yes, I know that it's sometimes you can make a payment right before the end date, but sometimes that's not the best option. What do you recommend? And also, how much of the portion should you pay? Should you always pay the minimum, or should you pay over the minimum? It's a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this depends on how much can you afford to pay, because the bank is charging interest, not when it's due, but all the time, like daily. It's a small percentage. So if you can afford to pay it sooner, you should. Now I will say for credit cards, they don't start until after that first month, but it sounds like you're talking more of like a longer term loan that you're not paying off after one month. So as an example, a mortgage payment or something that's monthly, long term, they'll give you a bill that says here's the minimum amount for the month, but you can pay more than that. You can go beyond that, and that'll help you in the long run, because now you're chipping away at that principal, and you have to pay less interest going forward. So if you could do it bi-weekly, like if your paycheck is a bi-weekly paycheck, change your payments to be bi-weekly to kind of align with when you're actually receiving money. And that actually can save thousands of dollars long-term in interest savings, for a big purchase like a mortgage.
Thank you.
Can I give you a strategy I'd use? And I think when you want to build your credit, this is something to be mindful of. So people always say, put on your credit card what you can afford to pay off. And some people say, well, pay everything off right away, right? I would say pay things off in increments so that it is paid off in time, but paid off every single week. And that shows that you are constantly making payments to it. And then it helps you to build out how someone sees you or what you pay your bills, right? So for me, like if I spend $500 and I know it's due in a month, 30 days, then I'll pay maybe $125 this week, $125 the next week, like that. So it's still paid off, but payment history and like payments on time does affect your credit score and can boost it in that way.
Awesome. I have one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
So I've tried to get to the 800 mark, to get the exceptional mark, but it's almost like impossible. So it's like I get close, but never that close. what does it take? Would I have to spend way more money or open up a higher credit line or something? How would that?
So I think judging by your voice and maybe your picture, you're maybe on the younger side.
Yeah.
Part of it is having the credit history. So if you don't have like a 20-year history, for instance, you can't quite get to that 800 side. But I will say, if you're at like 780, you're probably getting all of the benefits of being, 810. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But that's what it is. It's you're probably missing something like that, like the credit history and maybe having a diverse amount of types of credit. But it sounds like you're in good shape either way.
I definitely got into the 800s at 36. So give it some time, and continue to do what you're doing. It comes in time. And the truth is, it's really not that much different than my like 780 or something like that. They don't give you like some bonus points. Not that I noticed, and I've applied for a few things. So, but yeah, keep doing.
I got a few years to go. Looking forward to it.
Just keep it clean. And when I tell you that, like, keeping it clean is something that I strive for. Like, I was so addicted to checking my credit that I would, not my credit necessarily, but like making sure my credit cards were paid off and making sure nothing crazy went onto my cards that I didn't know about. And I used to check it all the time. And my friend used to joke about it. And then something happened personally, which I was telling people earlier today, don't ever co-sign for anything for anyone, period. Don't co-sign for your children, your parents, your spouse, no one gets to get a co-sign. And I knew that, and I did it anyway. I co-signed for a car, and then the person stopped paying the car in the second month or third month. I can't remember. So someone who is like always checking her credit card statements, to have that late payment, to have that non-payment, and it went on for 3 years, by the way. In the beginning, I literally had a panic attack. And so my credit score dropped like 100 points. So it was it was like 740, and it went down to 636. And that was the only thing I've ever paid late in my life. The only thing that was negative on my credit report. But once I set up, so the car got repossessed, and I told you guys this because it's important to know how you can build back your credit and how life happens. The car was repossessed. I called the bank up to like, come get this car. And I made a payment plan. I told them I'll pay. They wanted $14,000. I told them I have $9,000. I gave them $9,000. And then I went to my credit union and borrowed the $9,000, and I paid every single month. And within, I would say 6 months or so, my credit score shot right back up into the 700s. And then I don't remember if it was like a year or two later, but I was in the 800 mark, right? And so what I say that to say is that we may have had negative things on our credit report, but if you make your payments, if you settle the debt, make the payments, you can always pull your credit score back up.
Absolutely. Like as Ed was going over here, the big factors that impact your credit score, right? Top two, payment history, right? Paying off your bills on time. And if you miss it, you can make up for it, but that just means more time that you have to be paying it off on time. It just adds on to that history, right? And then current debts, how much you have currently borrowed. This goes back to the utilization that Chantel was mentioned before, right? If you have, let's say, $10,000 worth of credit, between all your loans, if you're only using usually like 3 to 6%, so you're only using like 300 or 600 of that at a time, that's a good low level of utilization that's going to boost your score the longer you're at a low level utilization. Like, so somebody who's got a $10,000 credit line and only using $300 to $600 of it at a time is going to have a better credit score than somebody who has a 10,000 credit line and is using like 5,000 or 6,000 of that, right? So those are going to be big factors, right? Paying off your bills on time every month, and then having a credit line that's a lot bigger than how much you actually use, right? Great questions. These are some great questions.
So I have one more question actually.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
does having more credit cards lower your credit use?
Yes, yes, it does. So let's say you got, pretty good credit and you can open multiple credit cards, right? And you can totally do that and just not use all of them, right? Or have a really small balance on each of them. That's a great way to expand your credit. Open a credit card, and either not use it or not use a lot of that balance. Now, the thing you need to keep in mind, of course, is you don't want to be opening too many cards that have like fees, right? Because then you open a card, you don't use it, but then you're still paying like a annual fee, credit card fee. That's not going to do you any good. So look for free cards when you can. And also, number 4 over here, new credit applications. You want to be careful about not opening too many, at a time or too soon. So what's a good pace for that? I'd say if you're opening like one new card every 6 months, that's probably okay. Just know that it's going to, reduce your credit history temporarily, because what they do with credit history is they take an average of your credit accounts. So if you have, most of your accounts being newer accounts, let's say you have like one really old account that's like 10 years old, but you have like 5 accounts that you just opened in the last year, then your credit history is going to, on average, be younger, essentially a younger credit history, and that will negatively impact your score. But over time, as you hold on to those 5 credit cards for longer, that's going to end up being better for you in the long run. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Also, may I include another question that ties into that?
Yeah, is that Manuel?
So yes. So the terms of hard inquiry and soft inquiries, would you be able to define those and just in its nature and how it affects and impacts people's credit?
Yes, great question. So inquiries, right? Inquiries are when somebody is checking your credit. And I'm just going to jump back for a second. People who can check your credit, it could, it's lenders are going to, banks, credit card companies, they're going to check your credit. Your boss, your employer, the company that hires you is checking your credit as well. They want to know, okay, how, is this person paying their bills? Can we trust this person? That factors in. If you're renting a place, your landlord, they're also going to want to check your credit. A hard inquiry is when typically a lender, like a bank or a credit card company, is doing a hard inquiry because you're applying for a loan or you're applying for a credit card. You're making it clear that you definitely want some credit. You definitely want a loan extended to you. And so they're going to do a hard inquiry, meaning they're going to do a fuller credit score and credit report check, a stronger background check, and that's going to impact your score, because it basically means you're very serious about taking out a new loan, and so that's going to impact your score. So that's a hard inquiry, right? A soft inquiry is a peek at your credit score, a peek at your credit report history that is not going to impact your score. This could be like an employer, for example, like the company you work for. Before you start a new job, they do a soft inquiry because they just want to check enough of your background to say, okay, this person is reliable, right? They pay off their loans, they pay their bills on time. This is someone I think I can trust, right? But since you're not actually the one looking for new credit, it's your boss or your employer checking on your credit history. It's not fair for you to get penalized. It's not fair for you to get hurt by that credit check because you didn't ask for it, somebody else did, right? So that's a soft inquiry, and that's not going to impact your score. Another case of like where you might have a soft inquiry is where if let's say you're not yet like fully applying for a mortgage, but you're like getting pre-approvals from different mortgage lenders, different banks, right? You're shopping around at different banks trying to see who's going to give me the best interest rate. You can get pre-approval, and that can be considered, you can get soft inquiries, while they're giving you a quote on what your interest could be. Just make it clear that you're not ready to move forward. That and you want to make sure and say, hey, if you're running my credit check on this mortgage, is this going to be a hard inquiry or a soft inquiry? Because sometimes mortgage companies, they don't know how serious you are, and therefore how far to go with their credit check. So if they do a hard inquiry, that's going to hurt your score. So if you're not serious, don't talk to a mortgage company and say, hey, I'm definitely going down, I definitely want you to go down the process of getting me a mortgage, because they're going to do a hard inquiry. But if you're just exploring, and you just want to get a sense of like what the rates could be, then some of these mortgage companies can do a soft inquiry. So they can give you a sense of like, hey, if you do go with us, this is the kind of rate we think we can give you. So that's another example of hard versus soft inquiry.
So Dion had his hand up, and then we have a question in the chat. Thank you for that.
Wow, Assemblywoman, this slide right here is touching upon what I'm going to hold you accountable for from the millions of people in our district. Okay. And that's credit affecting you to apply for a job, and credit affecting you applying for an apartment. Now, the house ownership, I understand and respect, but those kind of two things I perceive as discriminatory. But also, I was in another credit workshop where actually they went to the psychology of bad credit and your own personal responsibilities, hiccups in your own personal life and relationships. But yes, hopefully we can touch upon this slide.
Wait, you want the Assemblywoman to touch on it?
Yes. What legislation are you working on to stop this discrimination, as opposed to, when people have Fs on their records applying for jobs as well? Thank you.
So I actually do not have any legislation, and you're on my advisory board, so you know that you can throw stuff at me and we can work on stuff.
Hold me accountable too. I love it.
Yeah, I don't have any legislation because it has not come up before in a conversation with me. So I'm grateful to hear it for the first time. And then we can definitely talk it out, figure out what works best. But I think what's important to me is how we play in the game that we have right now, and do things to make sure that we are not subjecting people to bad legislation, right? So today we'll talk about how to play in the game that's already set up, and then we can talk in the future about how we dismantle things that don't work for us.
Awesome.
Okay.
Looks like we have a question in the chat about if you have a credit card from a bank and you want to change to another bank, can you transfer all of the credit history to the new bank? So your credit history isn't tied to one financial institution. It kind of goes centrally. Like all of these companies work together to create kind of a profile of you, a financial profile of you centrally. So it's not tied to one bank versus another bank. It goes with you whichever bank you go to. So if you have a bad credit and you try to apply for one bank, you're still taking that same bad credit score to any other bank you go to. So you can't really run away from a bad credit score. But on the other hand, it's good in the sense that if you have a good credit score, you're not tied to one bank. You can kind of go wherever and open up a new account.
And I'm not sure if that was the preference of if that was the actual question, but what I will say is that you can definitely switch. Like I had a credit card with a high APR, and the interest rate was like 24%, right? And then my bank offered me a way where I can switch all that debt that was on that one credit card onto a new credit card at the interest rate, like the credit cards at banks are usually much less than the ones at like store cards. And it was like maybe 14%. So it just made sense for me to transfer the debt from my store card onto my bank card.
Yep. That's called a balance transfer. So you're going to see those kind of deals, where, the banks, they want your business or, whoever's giving you this offer. So they'll offer to take your balances from, another credit card or other credit cards and consolidate it all onto one card. So that way, they own your debt. instead of, all these other, smaller, store cards or other credit card lenders. But the place where all your credit history and information is being stored is these 3 credit rating agencies I have on screen: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And those are the 3 agencies. They're maintaining their own record of all the payments that you're making, the debt you have. So they're the ones who are also coming up with your score. So regardless of what bank you go to or what credit card you go to, they're going to be pulling a credit score from one of these or multiple of these 3 rating agencies before they give you a loan or give you a credit card. And just kind of leading into that, one thing that's important is you should check your credit report and credit score frequently. And it's important, number 2 on this checklist I have here, is make sure your information is accurate in your credit report. Because sometimes, things happen, right? People are the ones keeping track of all this data, and they can make mistakes. And if they make a mistake, it's important for you, because you're the only one who's going to stand up for you, right? And who's going to say, this information's not right, or I disagree. Like, let's fix this. You then have the right to, petition or write or contact the agency and say, this information is not correct. I didn't miss this payment that you said I missed, or, I don't have this card that you say I have. That could either be a mistake, or it could be a sign of fraud. Somebody might be using your credit, might have your social security number or something, and you don't even know. That's why managing your credit is so important, and checking your free credit report, checking your credit scores is really important to make sure all that information is accurate and fairly represents you.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that don't be manic like I was. I was checking it regularly, like every day, but find that balance. And also note that someone's name may be very similar to yours, and that could end up on your credit report. And so you want to be mindful of those things too. If you see multiple types of like for me, I had my address at my dad's house, address at my mom's house, and then it was like some random address on there. And I was like, I know that's not mine. So that's something I would want to report and get off my credit report. So if you look at your credit report and you see things that do not match you, make sure that you write to them and ask them to remove it for you. And if you're a junior and a senior, be mindful of those things too, because there are many times where dads and sons may end up with things on their own credit reports that belong to the other person.
Daniel? Daniel?
Right. Oh, sorry, am I going on mute? Okay.
Yeah.
I think, did Yadira have something?
Yes, hi. Hi, everyone. Yadira Gonzalez-Taylor. I'm a former prosecutor, and unfortunately I have to hop off, but I wanted to make sure that I made this statement. Freezing your credit is important whether or not you have been a victim of identity theft, because when you get that good credit, you become a target. And our information now is very easily disseminated on the dark web and all kinds of other places where people buy information and they can get credit and buy all those fancy mattresses that Assemblywoman Jackson was referring to on your dime. It happened to me. I was a victim. $7,000 worth of car repairs were done. And it took me 9 months to clear my name because it was put on my credit. By the time I found out that I had been victimized, it was on my credit. And the police they will expect you to prove that you did not borrow the money, you didn't take the money, and are now trying to defraud the banking system. So my recommendation is to make sure you freeze your credit regardless, and also check, don't become obsessive about it, but do have a subscription that you can check every once in a while and just be mindful. And by the way, most people that have become identity theft victims do so because a loved one or a friend has stolen their identity. So if I can leave you with that little bit of wisdom before I leave, trust your friends, trust your family, but don't trust them too much. Your personal information, social security numbers, all of that stuff is private. You should always keep that out of sight of everyone, including, unfortunately, people that you love and care for, because you never know. All right?
I want to add to that.
Yadira, thank you so much for that.
If I can, I want to add to that quickly. Like I said before in the chat, I'm also a part of the National Equifax lawsuit because of that. So you too might be a part of that lawsuit. I'm going to put the link in the chat so you guys can check out if you're a part of that lawsuit, because a lot of people are affected by Equifax, even though it's part of the presentation. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
No problem. And just to touch on the couple of things that Yadira mentioned, right? So, one of the checklist items we have here, right? Request a free fraud alert. So what you can do is, with any of the three agencies, you can request a fraud alert. Now, what is that? That is a notification that anytime something happens with your credit, whether it's like a new credit card that's being opened or a loan being opened, or even someone doing an inquiry, right? Whether hard or soft, you're getting notified before anything goes further, right? That way, this gives you a chance to say, hey, you'll get a notification saying, hey, a new credit card is being opened in your name. Is that you? You have a chance to say, no, that's not me. Don't go ahead and do that. Typically what will happen is, you can give these agencies, your contact, your phone number, email, and you'll get either a message, or an email saying, hey, we're just flagging some activity on your account. Is this right? Is this accurate? Yeah. So that's one way to monitor your accounts.
And I will offer that sometimes it's annoying because you'll go to another state or out of the country and you forget to notify your banks or whoever, and then they will decline your card, or you can't use your card. So I would say be mindful to tell your banking or whomever that you are traveling, so that you can still have access to your card when you have these alerts on there. Because sometimes, like with my bank, TD will shut it down, not allow me to make a payment. Even when I started going up to Albany, guys, like I started going to Albany, they shut down and declined my card, which is good for me, but it is annoying. So you want to make sure you tell people when you're traveling.
Absolutely. All right, any other questions from the group?
Yes, I have a question. I lost a few close relatives during the pandemic. My credit is like kind of average. And I'm not working right now, but in the next year, I want to purchase a house. How hard, or what do you think my credit score should be before I start to, inquire about maybe getting like that first time homeowner's loan?
Right. Yeah, so that's a great question, Ava. So in this case, what the bank's going to look for, they're going to look for a couple of things, not just your credit score. So the credit score, what they're going to look at is they're going to see that, and that's primarily going to be what sets the interest rate that you get. So, regardless of where you fall on the scale, if you're in the, fair to very good, if you're in that range, right, it is, possible to get a mortgage, but it's just that depending on where you fall, like if you're in the very good range or the good range, you'll get a better rate, right? A better interest rate than you would if you're in the fair or poor, right? Poor score. If you're in the poor score, I would say definitely no. Don't even bother going for that mortgage. It's got to be fair and above, right? Now, but the second part that you mentioned is income, right? Income is a big question, and that is probably going to be the bigger factor here. Even you say you have average credit, which is fine, but I think the bigger thing for the bank here is income, because they're going to want to know if they extend you the loan, the mortgage, are you going to be able to afford paying it back every month, right? So they have to know that whatever the mortgage payment is on the home that you're trying to buy, that you have some income, some money that you can use to pay it off every month. So you either prove that by saying, I have enough assets, I have enough cash in the bank, and other stuff that I can use to pay you back, Mr. Mortgage Lender or Ms. Mortgage Lender every month. Either that, or you got to have some income, either some employment or some check coming in the mail that you can use to pay it off. That's going to be probably the bigger factor here, Ava, I think. So I think obviously better score is better, to get the best interest rate. Higher score is always better. I think if you're in the good and above, that's probably the sweet spot to be in. But in this situation, I would say, being able to prove that you have the income or cash on hand to pay the monthly payments. That's what the bank is going to look for. So when you secure either, you know, some income that you can use to pay those monthly payments, that's probably when you should feel more comfortable buying a home.
And I know banks feel comfortable when people have had their jobs for a while. So I know a friend of mine applied for a home loan, but just started a new job and they weren't ready to loan to that person. And so I think they wanted to check in with him after a year of being on the job. So you want to have at least a few years of, I mean, not that you don't want to go and check with your bank, but just be mindful that some banks will say, well, you know, we will want you to have that steady income for a while so we know that we can trust that you will have that job to be able to pay your loan.
Well, I have my own business and my fiance has been on his job for a lot of years and his credit is much better than mine. So we're thinking about doing it, but I was wondering, how should my credit be? Because he's in the high 7s, 8. Mine's is in the low 7s. You know, I'm good, but I'm not that good. You know, so I just wanted, because what I got in touch with during this pandemic, that I'm like the matriarch of my family, and I was in this apartment for 3 months without allowing my grandchildren to go to the garbage. You understand that? That's the kind of fear that I had. And prior to that, I didn't want a home. But now I feel like I should have a place where at least they could go in the front yard or backyard, no matter what happens, you know? Because my parents always had that, and I don't have that. So now I'm looking to get a place where I can do that, you know. But I want to make sure that I'm in the right place where I can handle it.
You want to be responsible. No, you're asking all the right questions, Ava, and you know, like tremendous amount of respect, you know, for your goals here. Like that is an admirable goal. Now it's good that you mentioned your fiance in the picture, right? And you said he's fortunate that it seems like he's got a little better credit. And that's good. So I think one thing to ask is, I guess, in looking at the home that you're potentially trying to buy together, this is a decision you got to make as a couple, but does it make sense, or is he able to, afford the mortgage, on his own, on paper, that is. So why I say this is because when you co-sign a mortgage together, right, as a couple, the bank looks at both scores. And what they'll typically do though, is then they'll look at the lower score, right, when deciding on what interest rate to give you, right? So, I've seen similar issues, with other couples, right? Where, one person has a better score, slightly better score, or much better score. And then it comes down to, okay, can they afford to do that? The bank is going to want to make sure that, okay, you can afford to make the monthly payments. So question one is, can your fiance alone afford the monthly payments, by, everything that's on paper, even if in reality you're going to help him pay it, but if on paper, does he have the assets and the cash and the income coming in to make the bank happy, that the monthly payments can be paid? And if the answer is yes, then it might be better to have him be the signer on the mortgage, because his higher credit score might mean a better interest rate for the whole mortgage. That said, if even if his credit score is better, but if by himself he's like, I can't afford this whole mortgage by myself, I still need you to be on this mortgage, Ava, then no choice. You both need to sign on the mortgage, and both your credit scores will be considered. So that's just something to think about, something that's, for you to decide as a couple, but it's also something you can talk to, the bank about, the mortgage about, and say, you can ask them and say, hey, are we better off applying together as a couple, or, just one of us applying, and the bank should be able to run those numbers by you, those scenarios, to say, hey, let me check if your fiance is better off applying, solo on the mortgage, or if it's better for both of you being on the mortgage. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
This has been a great conversation. Anyone else have questions? We're going to wrap up pretty soon. But yeah, any other questions or comments, suggestions? Thank you for the thumbs up, Maximus.
So where can we, for future wrestling, where can we reach out to you guys? Where are you guys from, and what do you guys do? Maybe I missed the introduction.
Yeah, we
introduced ourselves. We jumped right past it.
we jumped ahead, but thanks for asking. I'll just jump back real quick to the intro, because we were so into it when to get right to the meat of it. But basically, so I'm Bryant, and me and Ed, we're both life coaches and personal finance coaches, and our goal is helping people with their personal finances and their life and career goals. Personal finance is obviously a big part of all of our lives, and we want to help people as much as we can. Each of us has had our own path, in life. I was born in New York, but then my parents moved to Jersey early on when I was a baby. So I grew up in Jersey, but then I came back to New York for school, went to NYU. That's where Ed and I met. We were both students at NYU. He's also a Jersey boy, moved to the city. And then, we were fortunate enough to, start our careers after graduating from college. I got my CPA, took my CFA exams, ended up working at Ernst & Young, where I've been for 10 years. Ed, you've taken a journey across multiple institutions, Deloitte, American Express, Time Magazine, now he's at Facebook. So we have day jobs essentially, but, in addition to our day jobs, we're really committed to helping people with personal finance and their career goals. And that's why, we founded My Million Year, because, we want to help people reach their dreams, of being a big money millionaires one day.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that introduction.
Absolutely. And if you want to get in touch with us, we can drop our contact. Ed, maybe we'll just drop our contact in the chat if people want to get in touch with us. But we have a website as well. All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
My screen went blank, so I'm on my phone at this point.
Oh. Chantel, do you want to wrap us up?
Absolutely. So I just want to say thank you to Ed and Bryant. You don't know how important this conversation is for all of us that's on this Zoom, but everyone who's watching on YouTube and Facebook. This is, we've had so many conversations about the lack of money or the lack of access. And I just want to make sure that our district and the people have the most information possible to make the best decisions for themselves and their families. And we were having some real honest conversation here about our past with credit, or how we want to take care of our credit so that we can put our families in better situations. And so I want to say thank you to you guys for engaging us in this conversation and giving us the information. And I want everyone to know that's watching that this is just the beginning. We're going to have multiple conversations around real estate, business, credit, and stocks, and a lot of conversation around credit, because credit, with good credit, you don't have to use your money for everything, or you don't have to pay these extreme amounts of interest on things when your credit is good. So I know, people are considering buying homes or buying cars, but it's something as simple as buying getting your cell phone in your own name. You have to have decent credit in order to do that. Like I mentioned, buying a bed, things like that when you want to furnish your home. So we will continue to have these conversations. Thank you all for tuning in and paying attention and asking really good questions. If you want additional information, feel free to reach out to my office and my staff, and we will definitely connect you guys as best we can. Stay tuned, be a part of our newsletter so you can see what's coming up. Because like I said, this is just the beginning. We are going to continue having conversations around wealth, financial literacy, and how to take care of ourselves. We all know, or maybe you don't know, we passed the legalization of adult use of marijuana. So there's going to be a new stream of revenue being created. And I want to make sure that we're at the table having that conversation. Credit is going to definitely be a part of that conversation when you want to talk about business licenses and opening up your own businesses when it comes to that new revenue stream. So I thank you all for being here, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us,
Thank
Chantel.
you.
It was a pleasure meeting everyone.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you for asking such great questions and being a part